Humanity has built machines that touch the stars, yet cannot produce minds that rise above the noise. We live in an era where information is infinite, but wisdom is extinct. This paradox should chill you. Our progress has grown louder while our thinking has grown weaker. Why is it that fools are given crowns of applause, while thinkers are buried in silence? Why does ignorance spread faster than truth? And why do the masses bow to mediocrity as if it were greatness? This is not random decay, it is design. A system where distraction is power, and wisdom is a threat. The modern world does not fear stupidity, it glorifies it. What was once shameful has become fashionable. And what was once sacred, wisdom, depth, discipline, has been sacrificed. You are about to see why the collapse of wisdom is not an accident, but a weapon. The most dangerous enemy of wisdom is not open hostility. It is quiet replacement. Today's world does not burn books. It buries them under noise. Everywhere you look, mediocrity is rewarded while depth is ignored. The person who shouts the loudest is treated as the most convincing. The one who entertains briefly is celebrated more than the one who teaches deeply. We live in a culture where attention itself has become the currency, and fools know how to spend it better than the wise. Fools shine because they are loud. Wisdom whispers, and whispers are drowned in chaos. This is why a shallow entertainer commands more influence than a philosopher, and why viral distractions are valued more than timeless truths. Media thrives on what is quick, easy, and addictive. Institutions feed this hunger, rewarding those who please the crowd instead of those who challenge it. What makes this worse is subtlety. Mediocrity does not arrive wearing the face of stupidity, it comes disguised as success. It comes as the influencer with millions of followers, the executive who says nothing profound but always stays visible, the politician who repeats empty slogans while being praised as relatable. This silent rise does not provoke alarm because it looks normal. It feels like progress even as it suffocates thought. The result is a culture where thinkers are sidelined. The student who questions the system is mocked for being too serious. The employee who speaks with depth is overshadowed by the one who speaks with confidence, even if their words are hollow. Over time, the habit forms. Respect the shallow, ignore the wise. This habit spreads like a disease, shaping how entire generations learn to see the world. The darkest truth is that mediocrity is not passive. It is aggressive. It does not merely sit alongside wisdom. It chokes it. It fills every space with noise so that nothing profound can breathe. The wise man becomes irrelevant not because he has lost his voice, but because the world has chosen to listen only to noise. This is why the collapse of wisdom feels so silent. There are no riots against philosophy, no protests against thinkers. Instead, there is a quiet starvation. People no longer seek depth because the shallow has been made enough. The rise of mediocrity is not the absence of wisdom, it is its executioner. And the execution happens not with swords, but with applause. Mediocrity is the enemy that smiles. It does not terrify you into silence. It distracts you into compliance. It builds a world where fools are crowned, not because they are worthy, but because their noise is useful. And once this becomes the norm, wisdom is no longer killed, it is forgotten. One of the most celebrated ideas of our time is also one of the most destructive. The belief that every opinion is equal. It sounds noble, even democratic. We are told that all voices deserve to be heard, that truth itself is decided by the majority. But this is a beautiful lie, because when the wise and the foolish are given the same weight, wisdom drowns under noise. The expert speaks with years of knowledge and discipline, yet his voice carries no more authority than the fool who shouts confidently without evidence. The philosopher asks deep questions, but he is overshadowed by the entertainer who delivers quick jokes. On social media, the influencer with millions of followers is treated as more credible than the scientist who has dedicated decades to study. The result is not equality. It is dilution. Truth is no longer truth, it is popularity. The danger of this myth is subtle. When all opinions are equal, the audience chooses the ones that comfort them rather than the ones that challenge them. Harsh truths are dismissed as negative, while shallow slogans are embraced as wisdom. The hard-earned knowledge of the few is buried under the careless words of the many. This does not raise society, it drags it downward. Consider how easily this plays out in daily life. A doctor warns about health, yet a celebrity's casual advice is followed more faithfully. A historian explains the lessons of the past, yet a viral video simplifies history into falsehoods that spread faster. People confuse visibility with credibility. The more someone is seen, the more their words are trusted regardless of their merit. This is how fools rise while wisdom falls silent. The lie is dangerous because it flatters us. It tells us that our untested opinions are just as valuable as the insights of those who have sacrificed for truth. It makes us feel important, while secretly eroding the standards that protect us from ignorance. Over time, this erasure of hierarchy makes people blind to the difference between knowledge and noise. The brutal truth is this: not all voices should carry the same weight. A fool's opinion about medicine does not equal a doctor's. A shallow slogan about leadership does not equal the philosophy of a statesman. Yet the world pretends they do, because pretending feels easier than confronting reality. Equality of opinion sounds kind, but it breeds ignorance. And so the wise are not defeated in argument, they are buried in applause. The crowd listens not to what is true, but to what feels good, and in doing so crowns the loudest voices as leaders. This is the collapse of standards, the triumph of mediocrity disguised as fairness. The lie of equal voices does not elevate humanity, it condemns it to foolishness. Crowds do not cheer what is true, they cheer what feels good. This is the raw psychology of mass behavior. People gathered together do not seek wisdom. They seek excitement, validation, and the rush of belonging. A crowd is not a collection of independent thinkers, it is a single organism that craves stimulation. And fools, unlike the wise, understand this instinctively. Fools master performance. They know how to stir emotions, when to raise their voice, when to smile, and when to flatter. Their words need not make sense. They only need to strike a chord with the heart. The thinker, on the other hand, speaks in complexity using nuance and caution. He is careful with truth, and truth is rarely entertaining. Where the fool dazzles, the wise man burdens. Where the fool ignites emotion, the wise man demands discipline. The result is predictable. The crowd worships the fool and ignores the thinker. History provides endless proof. The demagogue who blames enemies wins faster than the philosopher who explains causes. The leader who chants simple slogans rallies armies, while the thinker who offers sober warnings is ridiculed as weak. In ancient Rome, bread and circuses kept the masses entertained while true wisdom faded into libraries unread. In every age, entertainers have ruled more hearts than philosophers. The crowd does not want guidance, it wants spectacle. This is why wisdom isolates, while performance unites. The thinker speaks to the individual, urging reflection, responsibility, and doubt. But the fool speaks to the mob, offering clarity without thought, passion without restraint. The mob prefers the fool because the fool never asks for sacrifice, only for applause. The theater of performance does not lead to enlightenment. It leads to collective ignorance. What makes this cycle so deadly is that it feels natural. The applause makes the fool seem powerful, and the silence around the thinker makes him seem irrelevant. Over time, society begins to equate popularity with truth. A man cheered by thousands must be right. A man ignored must be wrong. This is the distorted logic of crowds, repeated endlessly through history. The wise man loses not because he is weak, but because he refuses to play the game of noise. He values truth over applause, and truth rarely pleases. Meanwhile, the fool thrives because he gives the crowd what it craves: the illusion of wisdom without the burden of thought. The dark reality is this: applause is not a measure of greatness. It is often the proof of manipulation. Fools win crowds not because they are correct, but because they understand the hunger of the mob. And every time the mob crowns a fool, wisdom collapses a little more, drowned beneath the thunder of clapping hands. There was a time when wisdom was a crown. In ancient societies, the voices that mattered most were not the loudest, but the deepest. Elders were sought for guidance, philosophers debated the principles of justice, and scholars were entrusted to shape law and morality. Rulers would not make decisions without counsel from men whose power was not their wealth or charisma, but their capacity to think beyond themselves. Wisdom once sat on a throne, and it commanded respect as naturally as a king commands obedience. Contrast that with today. We no longer look to those who have lived, learned, and endured. Instead, the world worships youth, speed, and novelty. The fresh voice, the viral idea, the newest face, these are treated as the ultimate authorities. What was once admired as experience is now dismissed as irrelevance. An elder's reflection is mocked as out of touch, a scholar's caution dismissed as boring. The throne where wisdom once ruled now belongs to jesters. This change is more than cultural, it is structural. In the past, survival demanded foresight, patience, and caution. A reckless leader would doom a tribe, while a wise elder could preserve it. But modern systems reward immediacy. Leaders are judged by quarterly profits, influencers by daily engagement, politicians by fleeting approval ratings. Speed has replaced depth, and novelty has replaced truth. What matters is not whether something lasts, but whether it excites right now. The danger is subtle but devastating. A society obsessed with novelty cannot sustain wisdom because wisdom requires time. It is forged through mistakes, reflection, and silence. Three things modern culture has no patience for. The thinker is too slow for the digital age, too measured for the viral crowd. His voice is drowned not because it lacks value, but because it lacks speed. The throne of wisdom, once sacred, is now a stage for performers. The philosopher who once shaped law would be ignored today in favor of an entertainer who can trend for a week. The scholar who once defined morality would be overshadowed by a loud activist who wins attention through outrage. What was once guidance has been reduced to spectacle, and yet the image is darker still. The throne of wisdom is not merely abandoned, it has been stolen. In its place sit jesters dressed as kings. They speak with certainty but lack depth, command followers but offer no vision. Their crown is applause, their power built on distraction. The masses, desperate for excitement, cheer their every word, never realizing that their leaders are clowns in disguise. This is the collapse of wisdom. Not a sudden execution, but a slow dethronement. A society that once bowed before wisdom now mocks it, treating it as weakness. The throne remains, but it no longer belongs to the wise. It belongs to the fool who entertains, while wisdom is left outside, uninvited, forgotten. Fools do not rise to power by accident. They are elevated, sponsored, and celebrated because they serve a purpose. The modern world does not glorify stupidity out of ignorance. It glorifies it out of strategy. Elites, corporations, and institutions know that a population entertained is a population controlled. Bread and circuses are not relics of Rome, they are the blueprint of today. Entertainment has become a weapon. Endless streams of shallow content, celebrity scandals, and trivial debates fill the minds of millions. Consumerism adds another chain. People are taught to desire endlessly, to chase distractions they cannot afford, and to drown their anxiety in products. Meanwhile, true wisdom, which asks people to slow down, question systems, and demand more from their leaders, is buried under noise. The truth is simple. A wise population is dangerous. A people capable of critical thought cannot be ruled through spectacle. They cannot be manipulated by slogans or pacified by illusions. But a distracted population, addicted to entertainment, obsessed with superficiality, is easy to govern. They do not ask questions. They do not resist. They simply consume. This is why fools are so useful. The influencer who sells empty trends, the politician who simplifies problems into childish slogans, the entertainer who absorbs every ounce of public attention. All of them play a role in keeping wisdom silent. They distract the masses with performances so constant and so loud that the voice of the thinker is impossible to hear. The people never notice the collapse of wisdom because they are too busy laughing, scrolling, or buying. Corporations benefit because fools sell distraction. Institutions benefit because fools divide attention. Elites benefit because fools prevent revolt. Every second spent applauding mediocrity is a second not spent questioning power. Every moment wasted in shallow entertainment is a moment not invested in deep reflection. In this system, the fool is not the disease but the tool, a mask worn by power to keep the masses blind. The contrast could not be clearer. A wise population demands accountability, resists manipulation, and recognizes exploitation. A distracted one argues endlessly about trivialities while their freedoms are quietly eroded. This is why the machinery of distraction keeps running. Because it works. The darkest part is that this machinery is invisible. People believe they are choosing freely when in reality, their choices are engineered. They believe they are entertained, but they are being subdued. They believe they are free, but they are chained by their own attention. The fool is not the architect of collapse. He is the pawn. His role is to keep you looking in the wrong direction while power moves quietly in the background. And as long as people cheer for fools, they will never see who is really pulling the strings. The truth is heavy, and most people cannot bear its weight. Wisdom demands responsibility, discipline, and the courage to face discomfort. It forces you to question your own actions, to confront painful realities, and to accept that life is not simple. But fools offer something far easier. They offer the sweet seduction of ignorance. And people, more often than not, choose ease over depth. Ignorance is seductive because it removes responsibility. If you follow a fool, you don't have to think. You don't have to wrestle with complexity or endure the silence of reflection. You simply accept the simple answer, the shallow slogan, the comforting lie. Harsh truths cut. Fools offer cushions. And when given the choice, the crowd almost always chooses comfort over pain, illusion over reality. History shows this clearly. When leaders told nations difficult truths, they were often rejected. But when demagogues offered scapegoats and easy promises, they were embraced. The philosopher warns that strength requires sacrifice, yet the fool promises pleasure without cost. People would rather be entertained by illusions than elevated by burdens. It is not that they cannot recognize wisdom, it is that they do not want it. In personal life, the same pattern appears. A wise friend who speaks difficult truths is avoided, while a shallow friend who flatters is cherished. A thinker who challenges people to grow is ignored, while an entertainer who distracts them from their emptiness is adored. People crave relief, not reality. And so, they prefer fools because fools make life feel lighter, even as they drag it into darkness. The brutal truth is that people want entertainment, not enlightenment. Wisdom asks for silence, discipline, and patience, things modern society has trained people to avoid. Entertainment gives instant reward, instant pleasure, instant escape. This is why fools rise so easily. They promise what wisdom refuses to give. They offer a life without struggle, answers without questions, and joy without responsibility. The seduction of ignorance is not just emotional, it is biological. The brain craves dopamine, and fools supply it in endless doses. A shallow distraction, a viral spectacle, a simple slogan. All of these are designed to stimulate, not to strengthen. Wisdom, on the other hand, is slow and often painful. It demands endurance, and most people would rather be comfortable than strong. This is why the masses follow fools so willingly. Not because they are blind, but because they are tired. They do not want to climb the mountain of truth when the fool offers a carnival at its base. They would rather laugh in chains than struggle for freedom. And so ignorance wins, not because it is stronger, but because it is easier. The seduction of ignorance is the greatest ally of the fool, and the greatest enemy of wisdom. People do not fear truth because it is hidden. They fear truth because it hurts. When wisdom collapses, the cost is not abstract. It is lived in weak leadership, shallow values, and a society that can no longer think beyond the next moment. When fools are worshipped, leaders stop being builders of the future and instead become entertainers of the present. They chase applause rather than solutions, popularity rather than principle. The result is a culture ruled not by vision, but by noise. Shallow values soon follow. A society that no longer esteems wisdom begins to glorify wealth without virtue, fame without substance, and beauty without depth. What matters is how something looks, not what it means. Appearances become more valuable than reality. And once appearances rule, deception thrives. The wise are silenced because their truths disturb the illusion, while the fools prosper because their lies feed it. History has shown us this collapse before. Civilizations that mocked wisdom and elevated folly always decayed from within. Ancient Rome, once guided by strategy and discipline, fell into decadence as the people demanded bread and circuses. The warnings of philosophers were ignored, drowned out by cheers for gladiators. The same pattern repeated in empires across history. When wisdom was dismissed as weakness, collapse followed. The dark insight is this: we are repeating the cycle. Our modern world is no exception. We laugh at the thinkers who question the system, while we celebrate the entertainers who distract us from it. We call philosophy irrelevant and treat mediocrity as strength. This is not progress. It is the same decline every great society has faced before its fall. Collapse does not come suddenly. It comes silently, disguised as normal life. It is not marked by explosions, but by erosion. Bit by bit, the respect for depth erodes. Bit by bit, the standards of thought are lowered. And one day, a society that once seemed unshakable finds itself hollow, unable to resist pressure, unable to lead itself, unable to survive. The collapse of wisdom is the beginning of decay. When the wise are no longer heard, corruption grows unchecked. When truth is mocked, lies spread without resistance. And when fools are worshipped, power becomes entertainment, leaving no one capable of guiding the world through crisis. This is why the death of wisdom is more terrifying than the rise of stupidity. Stupidity is obvious, visible, even laughable. But the loss of wisdom is invisible, silent, and irreversible. A world without wisdom does not simply stumble, it crumbles. And though the collapse may feel slow, by the time it is seen, it is too late to stop. The throne of wisdom is empty. In its place sit jesters, applauded by the crowd, unaware that the empire around them is already burning. If the age we live in glorifies fools, then the only way to rise above it is to refuse to join their worship. This is not easy. To resist fools is to stand apart from the crowd, and the crowd punishes those who break its rhythm. Yet if you want power, clarity, and true respect, you must anchor yourself in wisdom, even when the world mocks it. At work, this means valuing clarity and truth over popularity. Do not become the loudest voice in the room, become the sharpest. While others compete for attention with noise, you gain influence by bringing precision and solutions. Speak less, but when you do, make every word cut through confusion. This will not always make you liked, but it will make you respected. The fool seeks applause, the wise seek results. And over time, results endure while applause fades. In relationships, resist the shallow. Avoid people who drain you with empty chatter, who flatter without substance, who treat every moment as a performance. Seek depth instead, those who challenge you, who question you, who make you think harder. The fools will always be more entertaining, but they will also leave you emptier. Surround yourself with people who value growth over distraction, and you will build bonds that sharpen rather than dull you. In society, the greatest challenge is distraction. Fools thrive because they flood your attention with noise. To resist, you must anchor yourself in philosophy, reading, reflecting, and thinking beyond the immediate. Limit the time you give to shallow entertainment and reclaim it for silence and thought. Learn from history, from great thinkers, from the lessons written in blood across centuries. Anchoring yourself in philosophy does not make you outdated, it makes you untouchable. But there is a warning: wisdom isolates. The crowd that worships fools will look at you with suspicion. They will mock you for being too serious, dismiss you for being too intense. This is the price of clarity in a world that values distraction. Yet this isolation is also your elevation. By refusing to worship fools, you rise above their game. You become the person others turn to when the noise fails, when distraction collapses, when truth is finally needed. The fool shines in the moment. The wise endure across time. To resist the worship of fools is to choose difficulty now for power later. It is to accept the loneliness of depth for the authority of truth. And though the world may never reward wisdom openly, it always bows to it silently, when the illusions of fools inevitably crumble. The choice is yours, to clap with the crowd as fools dance on the throne, or to step outside and claim a strength they will never touch. We have walked through the ruins of wisdom and seen how the modern world crowns fools. We have seen how mediocrity thrives, how crowds worship noise, how shallow smiles replace deep truths. The throne of wisdom has been abandoned, and in its place sit jesters, applauded by the crowd while civilizations quietly decay. The collapse is not loud. It is silent, disguised as entertainment, disguised as fairness, disguised as progress. Yet even in this darkness, wisdom has not vanished. It remains, though fragile, like a flame flickering in the wind. A flame small enough to be ignored, yet strong enough to guide anyone brave enough to follow it. This is the paradox. Wisdom appears weak in an age of noise, yet it holds the only true power, the power to see clearly when all others are blind. The brutal truth is this: you cannot save the world from its worship of fools. The machinery of distraction is too vast, the seduction of ignorance too sweet, the applause of the mob too loud. But you can save yourself. You can refuse to bow when others kneel. You can anchor yourself in truth, sharpen your mind in silence, and carry the flame that others have abandoned. Do not mistake this path for glory. The world will not celebrate you for holding to wisdom. It will punish you with isolation, mock you with laughter, tempt you with comfort. But in that loneliness lies power. For while others live in illusions, you will see through them. While others are trapped by noise, you will act with clarity. While others worship jesters, you will rule yourself. And the man who rules himself cannot be ruled by anyone. Wisdom does not demand to be popular, it demands to be preserved. And those who guard it, even in silence, become the unseen rulers of the world. Because when the spectacle ends, when the illusions collapse, when the applause fades, people turn to the one who remains steady. The fool commands the crowd for a season. The wise command the future. The world crowns jesters, but those who guard wisdom rule in silence.